Ladies and gentlemen, I want you to close your eyes for a moment. I want you to think about the last time life hit you so hard that you didn't know if you were going to get back up. Maybe it was last year. Maybe it was last month. Maybe it was this morning. Go there. Right now. Go to that place in your memory where the ground gave way beneath your feet, where the thing you worked for, the thing you prayed for, the thing you sacrificed everything for crumbled, fell apart, disappeared right in front of your eyes. You feel that weight in your chest, that tightness in your throat, that voice inside your head whispering, maybe this just isn't for you. Keep your eyes closed. Now I want you to think about a river. Not a picture perfect river from a movie, a real river, powerful, ancient, unstoppable. A river that has been flowing for thousands of years before you were born and will still be flowing long after every single one of us is gone. A river that has carved valleys. A river that has carved valleys. A river that has shaped. A river that has traveled hundreds, sometimes thousands of miles through desert and jungle and rock and ice. Now in the middle of that river, there is a rock. Big, solid, immovable, heavy as all the pain you've ever carried. And here's what I want you to see, really see, before you open your eyes. The river does not stop. The river does not scream at the rock. The river does not argue with the rock. The river does not sit on the bank and cry about the rock. The river does not post about the rock. The river does not blame the rock for ruining its journey. The river simply flows around it. And in doing so, the river does something remarkable, something almost unbelievable. Over time, with patience, with persistence, with that quiet, relentless movement that never stops, the river shapes the rock. Open your eyes. Ladies and gentlemen, that river is you. That rock is everything life has thrown at you. And today, in the next hour that we spend together, I'm going to show you why the most powerful force on this earth is not the loudest, not the most aggressive, not the most forceful. It is the most persistent. It is the most patient. It is the force that refuses to stop moving, no matter what stands in its way. I am going to tell you stories today. Real stories. Stories of people who were told they were nothing and became everything. Stories of men and women who sat in the darkest rooms of their lives and somehow found a small flicker of light. Stories of failure that look so much like your failure. Stories of pain that sound so much like your pain. Stories of comeback that I promise you, I absolutely promise you, is still available to you right now in this very moment. But before I tell you those stories, I need to tell you mine, because I didn't always believe what I'm about to tell you. There was a time in my life, and I'm not proud of this, but I'm not ashamed of it either, because shame is just fear in a fancy coat. There was a time in my life where I sat on the floor of a bathroom at 2 in the morning, and I asked God or the universe or whatever force is out there holding all of this together. I asked it a very simple question. Why is it that I work so hard and get so little? Why is it that I do everything right and things still go wrong? Why is it that I pour everything I have into building something and watch it collapse like it was made of sand? Why is it that the people who seem to care the least get the most, and the people who pour their soul into something are left with nothing? Why? And you know what the universe said back to me? Nothing. Silence. And in that silence, I did what most broken people do. I made a decision. Not a brave decision, not an inspired decision, a scared, tired, desperate decision. I decided to quit. Not quit life. I want to be very clear about that. I decided to quit dreaming. I decided to quit hoping. I decided to quit reaching for the thing that kept feeling just out of reach. I decided that maybe the people who told me I wasn't enough were right. Maybe the circumstances that kept pushing me back were signals, not obstacles. Maybe the universe's silence was an answer after all, and the answer was, this isn't for you. And for about 6 months, I lived in that decision. And I want to tell you something about that kind of living, because maybe some of you are there right now. When you quit on your dream, you don't feel relieved. You think you will. You think you will. You think once I let go of this thing, I'll finally be at peace. But that's not what happens. What happens is a quiet deadness, a gray kind of morning that doesn't go away. You go through the motions. You smile when you're supposed to smile. You say you're fine when people ask, but something inside you, something essential, something alive, has gone dark. That's what quitting feels like. Not freedom, absence in one day. And I don't know why this day and not another day. I can't explain the timing of grace. One day, I was walking along a river near my home. Just walking. No purpose to it, just putting one foot in front of the other because that felt like all I could manage. And I stopped it because I saw something. There was a massive boulder right in the middle of the water. Ancient looking, enormous. And the river was hitting it every second without stopping, without tiring, without frustration, just flowing, just moving. And I noticed something that changed my life. The rock had been shaped, not broken, not destroyed, not gone, but shaped, smoothed, worn by years and years of water that simply refused to stop moving. And I thought, that rock has been there for maybe 1,000 years. And the river never once looked at it and said, I give up. The river never once sat down and mourned the rock. The river just kept going, around it, over it, under it, through whatever gap was available. And eventually, the river won by fighting, not by force, by flowing. I stood there for a long time, long enough that the light changed. And when I finally walked home, something had shifted in me, something small but real, like a pilot light turning back on. After a long, cold, dark in, I made a new decision. Not a loud decision, not a dramatic decision, just a quiet, stubborn, river-like decision. I will not stop moving. Now I want to talk to you today about what it actually means to flow. Because I think we have been sold a lie, a big, seductive Hollywood lie about what success looks like, about what perseverance looks like, about what strength looks like. We have been told that strength is loud. We've been told that winners are the ones who hit the hardest, who scream the loudest, who bulldoze everything in their path. We have been fed 100 movies and 1,000 motivational clips of people punching through walls and running through fire and conquering everything with sheer force of will. And there's something beautiful in that image. I won't take it away from you, but I want to offer you something deeper today. Because if force was all it took, the strongest person would always win. The loudest voice would always be right. The most aggressive strategy would always triumph. But look around you. Look at history. The Roman Empire, the most powerful military force the ancient world had ever seen, is gone. The British Empire at its peak controlled a quarter of the world's land. Gone. Every dictatorship that ever ruled through fear and force eventually crumbled. Every tyrant who thought he could stop the flow of human longing for freedom discovered something humbling. You cannot stop water. You can dam it. You can redirect it. You can slow it down, but stop it. Never, because water doesn't fight you. It just waits. It just finds the next opening. It just keeps applying the one force that outlasts all others. Consistency. I want to tell you about a man named Thomas Edison. Now I know you've heard his name. I know you've heard the story about the light bulb and the 1,000 attempts. But I don't want to tell you that story today because that story has become a bumper sticker. We've heard it so many times it no longer lands. Let me tell you a different part of his story. Thomas Edison's laboratory burned to the ground in 1914. He was 67 years old. Everything he had built, decades of work, priceless prototypes, irreplaceable notes, gone in hours. His son Charles, who was there that night, expected to find his father devastated, broken. A 67-year-old man watching everything he had built turn to ash. He found Thomas Edison standing outside the burning building watching it burn, and he said to his son, "Go get your mother and all her friends. They'll never see a fire like this again." Let that sink in. His son asked him how he could be so calm. And Edison said something that I have carried with me for years. He said, "All our mistakes are burned up. Thank God we can start fresh." That is river thinking. That is not the thinking of a man fighting the rock. That is the thinking of a man who has learned to flow around every obstacle, even the ones that feel like the end of everything. And here's what happened next. The very next morning, Edison began rebuilding. Within 3 weeks, he had his team back in production. Within a year, he had more than doubled his output. He did not stop moving. Now I want to talk to you about pain. Real pain. The kind that doesn't come from setbacks at work or failures in business. The deepest kind of hardest rocks we face are not the external ones. The hardest rocks are the ones we carry inside us. The voice that says you're not smart enough. The memory that replays every time you try to trust someone. The wound from childhood that you've never shown anyone but that shapes everything quietly, invisibly, like a current you can't see but can always feel. The loss that you smile through in public and sit with alone at 3 in the morning. I want to talk to you about a woman named Oprah Winfrey. And again, I know you've heard this name, but stay with me because I want to go somewhere with this that most people don't go. Oprah grew up in rural Mississippi in poverty so deep that she wore dresses made from potato sacks to school and was mocked for it. She was sexually abused repeatedly as a child by family members, by people who were supposed to protect her. She gave birth at 14 to a premature baby who died shortly after. The rock in her river was not a pebble, it was a mountain turtle. It was a mountain to understand. She didn't overcome those things by pretending they didn't happen. She didn't overcome them by being harder than the pain. She overcame them by flowing through them, by telling the truth about them, by going around the shame of them, by refusing to let those rocks determine her destination. She talks openly about the fact that for years, her wound expressed itself as a desperate need for external validation. She overate. She made choices in relationships that reflected how little she valued herself. She was, in her own words, a deeply broken person, but she kept moving. And in moving, in flowing, in refusing to let any of those rocks be her final resting place, she became something the world had never seen before. Not because the pain went away, but because she decided at some point that the pain would be fuel, not a wall. The river doesn't ask the rock to move. The river flows around it and carries whatever the rock deposits. Sediment minerals the very substance of what it broke down and uses it to enrich the earth downstream. Or pain, if you let it flow, does not just leave you. Because of the access it gave him to people who were suffering in ways that a man with a conventional life could never have reached, his rock became his river. Do you understand what I'm saying? Your obstacle is not the end of your story. In the hands of a flowing, persistent, unstoppable spirit, your obstacle is your story. Your obstacle is the thing that makes your story worth telling. Your obstacle is the thing that makes your voice carry weight when you speak to someone who is suffering. Anyone can stand up and tell people life is beautiful when life has been beautiful to them. But when you stand up, having been through the fire, having sat in the darkness, having touched the rock and still kept moving, when you stand up and say, I know it's hard and I'm still going, that is the most powerful thing a human being can say to another human being. That is the voice that changes lives. And I believe that voice is in this room right now. I believe that voice is in you. But let me tell you about trees. But I know we're talking about rivers today, but stay with. When a storm comes, a real storm, the kind that breaks branches and uproots lesser things, do you know what happens to the trees with the deepest roots? They bend, they bend so far that sometimes you think they're going to snap. They groan to snap. They groan. They whip back and forth in the wind. And you look at them in the middle of the storm and you think, that tree is not going to survive this, and then the storm passes, and the tree stands up straight, and the roots are deeper than they were before because the storm forced them down. The resistance forced the roots to grow, to grow. The difficulty that looked like destruction was actually development. You are that tree. Every storm you have survived, every one of them, has driven your roots deeper than comfort ever could have. The person who has never struggled does not know what they are made of. They live in a kind of borrowed confidence, the confidence of someone who has never been truly tested. And borrowed confidence has a way of failing you at exactly the moment you need it most. But you, the ones who have been through something, you know your roots. You know what you survived. You know what the darkness felt like. And you know what it felt like to find the morning on the other side of it. You know what it's like to have nothing left and to reach inside yourself and find something somehow still there. That knowledge is unshakable. That knowledge is yours forever. No one can take it from you. I want to talk about what I call the myth of the perfect moment because one of the biggest rocks we face, one of the most deceptive rocks, the most camouflaged, is not actually made of failure or loss or pain. This rock is made of waiting. It goes like this. I'll start when I'm ready. I'll try when things settle down. I'll go after it when the kids are older, when the market is better, when I have more money, when I feel more confident, when I've done more research, when the timing is right. When. Here's what I need you to hear. The river does not wait for the perfect conditions to flow. Have you ever seen a river wait? No. The river flows in winter when the temperature is brutal. It flows in summer when everything around it is dry. It flows in drought and in flood. It flows in the dark of night and in the blinding light of noon. It flows whether anyone is watching or not. It flows whether anyone is celebrating it or not. The river doesn't flow when conditions are perfect, the river flows. And because it flows, it creates its own conditions. There's a man named Colonel Harlan Sanders. You know him as the face on the red and white bucket of chicken. But let me tell you the part of his story they don't put on the bucket door. Harlan Sanders spent most of his life failing. At various points in his life, he worked as a farm laborer, a streetcar conductor, a railroad fireman, a lawyer, and a gas station operator. He started a motel that burned down. They will encounter different obstacles and different beauty and different moments of grace. And both of them are rivers. Both of them are flowing, both of them are valid. Your path is not slower than someone else's path. Your path is your path. And the sooner you stop comparing the shape of your river to the shape of someone else's, the sooner you put down your eyes and take yours off their journey, the more energy you will have to move.